When I started this channel a year ago, my plan was to mainly talk about how to come to the US. I was mainly going to focus on helping students from India to apply to universities in the US and help them in their application process. Now, as the channel started, I also got my green card, and then I thought it would be good to provide information about how to apply for green card because that process, when I was doing it myself, sometimes there was not enough information. So I thought, maybe I should do that first, and my channel took a different direction where I started providing about information about applying for green card, EB1 or EB2. I'm still going to continue doing that, but I want to go back to my original plan where I wanted to essentially help students from India, students generally who are either at the school level or at the college level, to apply to school or either PhD or undergraduate in the United States. So now I'm going to go back to my original plan. And in the process, maybe I will also share my own story, how I started and how I planned to come to the US when I decided to come to the US, how I had to take the journey step by step. So I'm going to share all these details in the next set of videos. If you have any questions, feel free to send me questions and I would be happy to answer them. If you have any comments about these videos or if you want to somehow ask something very specific about my personal story or about a college or university that you're applying to, feel free to put that in the comment box. I would be happy to answer any question. So today is going to be, I'm going to give you a overview of what the application process looks like. So if you want to come to the US, first of all, I think if you wanted to come to the US, you need three things, okay? You need three things to come to the US. And these are not some like educational qualifications or some kind of documentation that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is if you want to come to the US, you need three things. The first thing is you need to have a plan. You really need to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you will not be able to come to the US, okay? Because if you even just think in terms of how long it takes to come to the US, let's say not even thinking about school, you just want to come to visit the US, you need a visa, right? You need at least a visa. To need a visa, you need to apply for the visa, get an interview scheduled, appear for the interview, with full preparation. That do you have enough money? They will ask you these questions. Why are you going? So, my point is that you need a plan. So the first thing you need is a plan if you want to come to the US. The second thing you need is money. Okay. Now, this is not some cheeky way of saying, oh, you have to be rich to come to the US. No. Uh, if I just go back to my original example, if you want to come to the US, you have to apply for a visa. Applying for a visa costs money. It costs about $200. Um, then if you go for the interview, that will cost you money. If you go at the interview, they will ask you how much money do you have? Do you have a bank account? Why are you going? If you're going for tourism, do you have a few $1,000s to spend while you stay in the US? But to be more focused, if you're coming to study in the US, um, you'd still need money. Even if you get into a fully funded PhD program at the best university, Harvard, MIT, whatever, you still need money because the application process itself requires money. To prepare for the application, you need to do GRE exam. You need to pay the application fee. You need to do some preparatory work, like you might be uh, to do your GRE exam. You might need to take some coaching. All that requires money. On top of that, let's say you apply and you do get admitted into a fully funded PhD program. Even then, you will have to apply for a visa. The university is not going to pay you money for your visa. The university is not going to pay you for your flight to come to the US. Um, Even after you come to the US, generally people come to the US in early August if they are going to school, but your funding money would not start typically till the end of September. So the first 2 months you need money to stay in the US. You will have to rent a place to live. All these things cost a lot of money. And I will make another video where I will explain you how much money you actually need to come to the US. Let's say you're coming as a graduate student or an undergraduate student. Then after planning and money, the third thing that you need to come to the US is determination. You need to be determined. Okay, if you don't have enough money, something would work out. If you don't have enough time, you didn't have enough planning early on, that's okay. We can work on that. We can work on your plan. We can work on the money aspect. But if you don't have determination, you will not be able to come to the US. Okay, so I think the single most important thing is determination. Once you have the determination, then you will be able to make a plan and you will be able to find the money to succeed and come to the US. So before I started, I just want to say that these are the crucial things that you would need. So I can help you with the plan. You will somehow figure out a way, if you to find the money only if you have determination. So I'm going to help you with the first part. The second two you will have to figure out on your own. So having said that, let's start with the graduate or undergraduate school process. Today I will focus mainly, I'll give you an overview of what you require to apply for school. I have made another video which I will link in this under this video where I explain to you that there are different categories of colleges and universities in the US. If you're coming for graduate school, you should mainly focus on R1 level universities or R2 level universities. But there are a lot of people who come here for at R3 level universities or even lower ranked universities who are not a part of the R1, R2, R3 system, and they do very well. They come here to study IT, MBA, and several other programs, and they all succeed. So you can watch that video, and once you watch that video you will be able to get a good sense of what different universities in the US are, and you need to select some of these universities to apply. So let's say you have selected a university to apply. Then what we need to do is we need to figure out what is the application process, which is what I will explain today. So keep on top. So in the application process, there are, if you are coming to the US, you are either coming for undergraduate or graduate, and the application process for both undergraduate and graduate are kind of similar. What you need in this application process is you need to first have your education completed. So if you're coming for undergraduate, which means that you're coming for a bachelor's degree, you would be in high school, or you either have already finished high school or you are in the final year. So if you're in India, you're in your 12th grade when you apply. Sometimes people also apply after they have finished their high school. Similarly, if you're coming for graduate school, then you have at least a bachelor's degree. You can also have master's degree, but you need at least to have a bachelor's degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree to come to the US. Then you need the application, the actual application that you have to fill out. In case of the undergraduate application, there are two different applications. One is the common application, the other is the college specific application. So let's say you're applying to many colleges, let's say you're applying to 5 or 10 colleges, then all these colleges have come together and made a common application. Okay, so you will be filling out that common application where you will provide your basic information. I'll give you more details of what goes in the common application in a little bit. And then if you're applying to, let's say, 10 colleges, some of these colleges might want you to give more information on why you want to come to that specific college or university. So most of the top tier colleges will also have a college application. So after filling out the common application, you have to fill out the college-specific application for each college. Once once you have the education and application materials ready, you need to have either SAT or ACT score for your undergraduate, and you need a GRE or GMAT score for your graduate school. Now these are uh, exams that are conducted by certain testing companies. These are chosen by these universities in the US. These are private testing companies that do testing, whether you are ready for college or PhD, master's level education or not. Typically, if you have to do very well in these exams, because in the US there is no standardized exams at school level or college level. Every school gives their own score. So a score in one school of four out of four. So in the US, the scaling is from 1 to 4. Okay, the GPA system is from 1 to 4, and a 4 out of 4 at one school is not the same as, let's say, 3 out of 4 in some really really good school. Okay, so because there is no standardized test like we have in India, like CBSE exam or ICSE exam, you need to compare students from different colleges, different universities, different high schools, which might have different programs. The standards might be different. So, in order to have a uniform level of educating how these students are, there are these ACT or SAT exams at the high school level, or GRE or GMAT exams at the university level or bachelor's level, where students take these exams. These are done by private companies, and their score typically determines how well or which school they will get into. So these are something that you will have to prepare. There are SAT or ACT exams in India. Similarly, there are GRE, GMAT exams in India, which I took the GRE exam. So you have to take these exams and send the scores of these exams to the university. At the graduate level, you have to send it to each university separately, but at the college level, you just have to put it in your common application, as far as I understand. After your SAT or GRE exam, the next thing is English proficiency, especially if you're coming from a non-English speaking country and English is not your native languages. So let's say you're coming from India or China or Africa, then most of the time you will have to also prove that your English is good enough to be able to come to the US. To do that, you take a test again. At graduate level, GRE should be sufficient, but sometimes people also take an exam in TOEFL or IELTS, so that if the GRE exam didn't go well, or if you want to prove extra through some other exam that you are more prepared, then you can take a TOEFL or a GRE exam, which would be mandatory most of the time for people coming from outside the US. Now, the next few things that you need to complete your application is a letter of recommendation. If you are coming at the undergraduate level, so you are a high school student, typically it would be a high school counselor or a teacher in your high school who would write this letter of recommendation and send it to the university in some kind of a confidential way. Um, if you are at graduate level, then every university will have their own application platform, and in the application platform, you will have to provide the information of your referees. So this could be a professor that you have, that had taught you, or somebody you have done research with, and they will have to go on their own on the website and upload their letter of recommendation. Okay, so these letters of recommendations are very very important at this level, because apart from your education, there is not a very clear way of judging how good you are going to be at college or uh, research level. Generally, it's through a person who knows you better and who is in a more qualified position, like a professor or a teacher, who can say something about you. Would you need an opinion from a third person, and that's why letter of recommendations are very very important. You need typically 2 to 3 letter of recommendation if you're applying for a PhD position, but if you're applying for undergraduate, you just need one recommendation letter. And finally, if you're applying at the undergraduate level, then there might be an option to have an interview. Okay, uh, these interviews are typically optional. Sometimes these interviews are a good way to showcase extra talent, but I think people coming from non-English speaking countries especially, they should take advantage of this interview, because in this interview you can show that you are very good at speaking English, which is one of the most important criteria when somebody is giving admission, that can the person actually understand the the curriculum here. They might be very very smart, but they might not understand English, which will set them back. So they want to make sure very well that you can speak English, and these interviews are a good way to showcase that your English is good enough, apart from your SAT or GRE score. So these are the most important things. This is a kind of an overview. I will make another videos in which I will give you more details of what goes in the application, or uh, in the how to prepare for GRE or English proficiency and so on. But just to conclude, because the undergraduate application is typically a little bit, mm, it has a little bit more parts to it. Let me just show you what goes in the undergraduate application. So for the undergraduate application, you will have to give your 10th and 11th class results in the application process. Okay, and now generally all of people generally work very hard in 10th class. I worked very very hard, and I got about 90% or 89% in my CBSE board exam. But in the 11th class, most of the people drop the ball. They want to relax, especially if you're in India, you know how we do. 10th class, we work very, very hard. There's so much pressure from the family, from society, from teachers. But after 10th class, people say, okay, I want to relax for a little bit. But you have to remember that you are sending in the grades for 11th class, because when you apply, you will be in 12th grade. Now, if you look at my score in 11th class, I would not get admission anywhere in the United States. I think my grades dropped down from 90% to 60% in 11th class. So, if you're planning to come to the US, again, as I said at the very beginning, you have to plan. And in that planning, you have to consider this 11th class too. You cannot uh, take it easy in 11th class. You have to do well in 11th class also. And then, although when you will be applying, you might be generally you apply in November or December. That's when the application is due. And by the time, of course, you have not given your 12th class exam. So what generally happens is that the school or your counselor has to give you uh, a kind of what they are expecting for your grade. And then after you finish your 12th class exam and you get the grade, you have to submit that grade. And most of the time, the admission is conditional on this grade. If you don't do very well in your 12th class exam, then the college might take your admission back. So be very, very careful of what you provide as your 12th class grade that you're expecting, and try to get that and try to be very close. If you're not close to that grade, you might have problem later on. Then you have to prepare for either SAT or ACT exam. You can choose between SAT or ACT. You will typically do it in your 11th grade, and then you sign up for the SAT or ACT exam, appear for and do very very well. For English proficiency, you can either do TOEFL or IELTS. Either one of the exam would be good enough. At the undergraduate level, I think these are the only options you can have. You cannot take GRE exams. It is for the graduate level. Then you need one recommendation letter. Typically, I would say have at least two people ready who are willing to provide you recommendation letter. One of this person would be your school counselor. The other might be a teacher. And depending on if you have possibility, you can send two letters. Now let's go back. Let's go to the common application. This is the most important part. Common application. Common application has has your basic information, so where you're from, your how old you are, your family information, um, and then your address and so on. These are the basic information that you provide. Then you can also provide, on top of your educational background, in common application you provide a list of extracurricular activities that you have done. And most of the time, people provide a lot of extracurricular. So there is a limit. You can only provide up to 10 extracurricular activities, and most people will try to fill all of them. My suggestion would be that rather than trying to fill all these 10 extracurricular activities, which means that if you're doing 10 extracurricular activities and doing them very, very well, it means that you are a superhuman. Okay, and there are some superhumans, but which all sometimes it also means that you are either not putting enough effort on each one of them, or you're lying. Okay, nobody can do 10 extracurricular activities at a time. So my opinion would be that focus on a few. What that number is, you have to decide, and then try to do very, very well. Like if you are a world class sportsman or a musician or something which is really extraordinary, something that you have done over a long period of time, and you can show that you have done that activity over a long period of time, you have sustained it, and then you have produced some good results, that would be more strong than trying to show that, oh, I can do 10 different extracurricular or 15 different extracurricular activities. People want to see how persistent you are with what you have done. Uh, in this extracurricular activity, you can also show research. So if you at the high school level, you have done some kind of research, maybe you contacted some professor at a college which was close to your school, and you applied to that college. Um, and then you did some research as a high school student, which is very common in the US, by the way. And during that process, if you did it for 1 or 2 or 3 years and you came up with some publication, and that would be a great way to show that you are ready and you can consistently work on something and produce something of importance. So I would say focus on that kind of extracurricular activity rather than having 10 different things that, oh, I am a part of this club and that club, and I also swim, and I do horse riding, and I also do a painting, and I'm a musician, where but there is no evidence that you have done it for a long, long, long time. So you can provide a list of extracurricular activities, and then the most important part of the common application is the essay. So there is a 650 word typically essay, which is your personal statement on why you want to come to college. This is a very, very, very important part of the application. This is the most important part of the application. This is essentially which is going to make or break your application. Even if you have very good education and extracurricular activities, ACT, SAT score, if you don't write this app very well, this common app essay very well, then you are not getting into a good school. Okay, and even if you have a very, very good essay and everything else, there is no guarantee that you will get into a good school. But so you need to focus very, very, very much on this essay and try to do your best. And then in some colleges, so these two parts are of course mandatory for all colleges, for all applications, but there are a few things which are specific only for a few colleges. Some colleges or universities might have college specific essays, and these are generally, there are 2 or 3 essays that you have to write, and they are generally smaller. They are not 650 words but about 100 to 300 words. Here there might be some specific questions. It like one question might be that why do you want to go to that school, or why do you want to study a particular uh, course or a major at that school and not some other school. So there might be a question like that. And then sometimes there might be just some creative writing prompts, which because what happens is that this common app essay, since it is common to all the application that you will be sending, people sometime get a coach or somebody else to write that app. but it's harder to write such kind of essays or get a coach, and you will be paying for every application to write these smaller essays. So this is a way for colleges or university to see that you are the one who is, who is good at writing. And most of the time people will pay for this common app essay but won't pay for these specific essays. And that's why you can make a difference between whether this person had written this essay themselves or they got someone else to help them. And that's why they have these essays. And this could be some creative writing prompt like, hey, what is your favorite word? Why do you like that? What is a course that you would like to teach? Or tell us something about your room. Something very simple. And there are these questions. If you go on the internet, you can easily find what typical questions there are. So you have to write these college specific essays. And in this college specific essay, sometimes there is also an option for an interview. Okay, these interviews are mainly optional. Most of the time they're optional. Very few times they're mandatory. But I would say you should take advantage of this interview. So this interview could either be an interview with an alumni or or a counselor, but typically with an alumni or a student at the university who will ask you some questions and you answer them, and that is used to judge your application. And sometimes when the universities can't don't have enough resources to do interviews with alumni, either through Zoom or in person, then they will ask you to submit an interview through some companies. So there are some companies like Initial View or Vericant. These companies are again private companies who do these interviews with students who are applying to the US, and you can upload these interviews to the application portal. Now, these are verified by universities, so if you do this interview, it will be, of course, taken very seriously by the person who is making judgment on your application. But they are not mandatory; they are optional. But most of the time, these interviews are given a lot of weight. So if you're coming, especially from India or China, where people don't there's a large number of applications and all the applicants are very very good. Initial View or Vericant interview is a nice way to separate yourself from someone else. I mean, there are some places where although it's not mandatory, it's almost impossible to get an admission without an Initial View or Vericant interview. So take these interviews very seriously, and if possible, do this interview and upload it in your application package. Okay, so this video is getting very long, so I'm going to stop right now. But I'm going to continue to provide more and more information about admission in the US in the future. If you have any question, please feel free to send me a message or an email, and I will be happy to answer all these questions. In the next video, I will actually explain how my process was for the graduate school. So I focused here on undergraduate because I didn't come here for undergraduate education. I came for graduate school. So I'm going to make a much longer video where I will explain the whole process for graduate school and how I prepared over a long period of time to come to the United States. Okay, so see you in my next video. Good luck. I want you to come to the US. Come to the US.